I am Jack Miller, an ordinary man with a perfect life. I had a stable career as a lawyer in Chicago, a spacious house that I proudly built from scratch, and my wife, Emily, whom I trusted and loved. She was my world. Everything began to change on a peaceful Saturday morning when the sky in Chicago suddenly turned rainy without warning. I've always loved golf, and that morning I decided to leave early to enjoy a round on the course. Though the sky wasn't exactly clear, I thought the rain would be just a small inconvenience. Golf was always my escape, the place where I could unwind from work stress. The feeling of standing on the course, hitting each shot with precision, made me forget all my worries. But that day, instead of finding peace, I stumbled upon something I never wanted to see in my life. The rain started coming down heavily as I reached the third hole. As I made my way to the tee, the rain began to pour harder, soaking my clothes through. I had no choice but to keep going, determined to finish the round. But as I walked down the path towards the third hole, I noticed something strange near the trees by the edge of the course. I squinted, trying to make out the figures. My heart skipped a beat when I realized it was Emily standing there with another man. The sight was like a punch to my gut. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. My mind raced, thoughts swirling in a fog of confusion and disbelief. Was I imagining this? Could this really be happening? The man she was with was tall, dressed in a casual jacket, his back to me. And Emily, she was smiling, laughing, something I hadn't seen in weeks. I stood there frozen for a moment, the sound of the rain heavy in my ears. Should I walk over and confront them? Should I turn around and pretend I never saw anything? My feet felt glued to the ground, my thoughts a blur. Then Emily looked up. Her eyes locked with mine, and for the briefest second, I saw a flicker of guilt in her gaze. She quickly turned away, as if trying to hide it, but it was too late. I had already seen enough. I walked away, my mind in turmoil. What did this mean? How long had this been going on? What was I supposed to do now? My whole world felt like it was collapsing around me. I kept walking, my thoughts racing, the rain now feeling like an extra weight on my shoulders. I didn't even finish my round. I just left the course, heading back to the car with my mind in a daze. The drive home was a blur. The streets of Chicago, usually so familiar, seemed foreign and distant. The weight of the betrayal I had just witnessed was pressing down on me harder with every passing minute. When I got home, the house felt eerily quiet. Emily's car was in the driveway, and I could see the warm glow of the lights through the windows. But nothing felt warm anymore. I stood at the door for a moment, trying to steady my breath. Should I ask her about what I saw? What if there was an explanation? But deep down, I knew there was no easy explanation for what I had witnessed. I opened the door, the soft creak echoing in the silence. Emily was in the kitchen, humming softly as she prepared lunch. She didn't even hear me come in. I stood there for a moment, watching her, before the words I had been holding in finally tumbled out. "Emily, I saw you," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. She froze, turning slowly to face me, her expression going from calm to one of panic. "Jack, I can explain." But I couldn't hear anymore. The pain in my chest was overwhelming, and I didn't want to hear any excuses. I had already seen enough. The trust that had taken years to build was shattered in a single moment. I turned and walked away, retreating to the bedroom. I sat on the edge of the bed, my hands gripping the sheets, trying to make sense of everything. Was this the end? Was there any way to fix it? Emily eventually came in, standing in the doorway. "Jack, please, let me explain," she said, her voice shaky. I couldn't bring myself to look at her. The woman I had trusted with my whole heart had betrayed me, and I didn't know if I could ever trust her again. "I don't know if I can hear it, Emily," I said quietly. "I saw enough today to know that everything we had might just be a lie." She didn't say anything at first, then finally whispered, "I'm so sorry, Jack. I never meant for this to happen." I looked up at her, my eyes filled with hurt. "How long?" I asked, my voice hoarse. She hesitated, and that silence answered more than any words could. I stood up and walked past her, the space between us now feeling like an insurmountable distance. Whatever happened next, I knew one thing for sure: my life would never be the same. The silence between us felt like a thick, suffocating wall. I could barely breathe, the weight of the moment crushing me. Emily was still standing there, her face pale and her eyes filled with regret. But nothing she said could erase what I had seen. The trust I had built with her over the years, the love that had once felt so strong, now seemed fragile and broken beyond repair. I grabbed my coat and walked past her without a word. "Jack, where are you going?" she asked, her voice trembling. "I don't know," I replied, my tone flat. "I just need some time to think." I walked out the door, leaving the house that had once felt like a home. The rain hadn't stopped, and it seemed to mirror the storm inside my head. I didn't know where I was going, just that I needed to get away from everything, from her, from the life I thought I knew. I ended up at a small park near the lake, one I used to visit when I needed to clear my head. The bench I sat on was wet from the rain, but I didn't care. I needed the stillness, the quiet, to try and make sense of the mess I was in. How could she do this to me? What had I missed? I had been so focused on my work, on providing a life for us, that I hadn't noticed the cracks forming in our relationship. But could I have done something differently? Could I have seen the signs earlier? I sat there for what felt like hours, just staring at the lake, letting the rain wash over me. My thoughts kept circling back to Emily, to the man I had seen with her. What did he mean to her? Was I just a placeholder? Someone she stayed with out of convenience? My heart ached at the thought, but I knew deep down I needed answers. Finally, I stood up, my legs stiff from sitting so long. I didn't have the strength to go home just yet, but I knew I couldn't avoid the conversation forever. I needed to face Emily, to hear the truth from her, no matter how much it hurt. I took one last look at the lake before walking back to my car. The rain had started to slow, but the heavy weight in my chest was still there. "Jack," she whispered, stepping toward me, "please don't leave." "I'm so sorry. I'll do anything to make this right." I stared at her for a long moment, my heart torn between the love I once had for her and the pain of her betrayal. "I don't know if you can, Emily," I said quietly, "but we'll have to talk. We can't just keep pretending everything is fine." She nodded, tears streaming down her face. "I understand," she whispered. As I walked past her and into the house, I realized that no matter what happened next, the road ahead wouldn't be easy. The trust that had been broken would take time, maybe even years, to rebuild if it could be rebuilt at all. But for now, we had to face the truth, no matter how painful it was. And as I closed the door behind me, I felt the weight of the storm still hanging in the air, waiting for us to find some kind of resolution. Inside the house, the atmosphere was thick with tension. I stood there for a moment, unsure of what to say next. Emily's soft sobs echoed through the silence, and I could feel the ache in my chest, but I didn't know how to comfort her. After what had happened, I wasn't sure I even wanted to comfort her. Emily wiped her tears away, taking a shaky breath. I never wanted to hurt you, Jack. I made a huge mistake. Please, let me explain. I looked at her, trying to steady my emotions, but all I felt was confusion and betrayal. I wanted to hear what she had to say. I wanted to understand, but part of me feared the truth more than anything else. Okay, I finally said, my voice rough. Talk, but I need you to be honest with me. No excuses, no half-truths. Just the truth. She nodded, her hands trembling as she wiped her face. She took a deep breath before speaking, her voice soft, almost fragile. I never meant for things to get this far. It started with him. Mark, he's someone I met at work. At first, it was nothing, just someone to talk to. But over time, things changed. I don't know how or why it happened, but I let it. I clenched my fists, trying to keep my emotions in check as she continued. I know I made a terrible choice, she said, her voice breaking. I should stopped it before it went any further, but I didn't. I got lost in everything, the attention, the way he made me feel. I didn't think about you, about what it would do to us. Her words hung in the air, sharp and painful. It was like listening to the last shreds of our relationship slip away, piece by piece. How long has this been going on? I asked, my voice barely a whisper. I didn't even want to know, but I had to ask. Only a few months, she said quietly. It started innocently, but I know that's no excuse. I should have ended it, Jack. I'm so sorry. I couldn't look at her anymore. My mind was flooded with images of the two of them laughing together, sharing moments I thought belonged to us. It felt like everything I had worked for, everything I had believed in, was now just a lie. Why didn't you tell me? Why didn't you come to me when things started falling apart? I asked, trying to understand. I thought I could fix it myself, she replied, her voice thick with regret. I kept thinking I could handle it, that I could make everything right on my own. But I was wrong, Jack. I was so wrong. The words felt hollow, as if no apology could make up for the hurt she'd caused. But she kept talking, trying to explain her way through the mess she had made. I've been selfish, Jack. I've hurt you in ways I can't take back. I don't expect you to forgive me, but I'm asking for a chance to make things right. I love you, and I want to fix this even if it takes time. I don't want to lose you. I wanted to believe her. I wanted to hear her say that everything would be okay, that we could fix this together. But I couldn't ignore the doubt that had settled in my chest. Could I trust her again? Could we ever go back to the way things were? I don't know if I can ever trust you again, Emily, I said, my voice strained. You broke something in me today, something that might never heal. She reached out to me, but I stepped back, the distance between us growing with every word. I don't know what to do, she whispered, her eyes pleading with me. I love you, Jack. I want to make this right. I stood there, unsure of what to say, unsure of what to do next. The truth was, I wasn't sure if I could ever forgive her. But I also didn't know if I was ready to walk away from everything we had built together. The future seemed unclear, the path ahead uncertain. Let's just take it one step at a time, I said finally, my voice quiet but firm. I need space, Emily. I need time to figure things out. She nodded, tears streaming down her face, but she didn't argue. She understood. We both knew there were no quick fixes, no easy answers. It would take time, maybe too much time to heal the wounds that had been opened today. I walked away from her, retreating to the bedroom again, the weight of the moment pressing down on me. What was I supposed to do now? Could we rebuild from this? Or was this the end of everything we had worked so hard to build? As I lay on the bed, staring up at the ceiling, the storm outside began to subside, but the storm within me was far from over. The night stretched on in an uneasy silence, the only sound being the occasional drip of water from the roof as the rain slowed to a drizzle. I couldn't sleep. My mind kept racing with everything Emily had said, everything I had seen. There was no escaping it. This was the new reality. The world I had known was fractured, and no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't put the pieces back together just yet. I looked over at the clock. It was almost 2 a.m. I hadn't heard Emily move since we last spoke. The house felt like a stranger's now empty hollow, a place that used to feel like home, but now felt foreign. I wanted answers, but more than that, I wanted to know if I could ever look at her the same way again. After what seemed like hours of tossing and turning, I finally got up. The weight of everything pressing on my chest felt unbearable. I walked into the kitchen and poured myself a glass of water, my hands still shaking slightly. The light from the fridge cast a dull glow, and I wondered how we had ended up here. I knew I needed to talk to someone, anyone, who could help me make sense of the mess. I pulled out my phone and scrolled through the contacts. My best friend Lucas was the first person who came to mind. We had known each other since college, and he had always been someone I could rely on. I tapped his name and hit call, pacing back and forth as the phone rang. When he picked up, I could hear the sleepiness in his voice. "Jack, what's up? It's really late." I need to talk," I said, my voice raw. "It's Emily. Something happened." I heard him shift in bed, his voice suddenly more alert. "What happened, man? Is everything okay?" "No, it's not okay," I said, the words coming out in a rush. I found her with another guy today." "I don't know what to do, Lucas." There was a long pause on the other end of the line. "Damn, Jack." "I'm sorry, man. I don't even know what to feel anymore," I interrupted, my chest tightening. "I want to be angry, but I feel empty. I don't know if I can ever trust her again. I don't know if I can forgive her. She says she loves me, but how do I even begin to believe that after this?" Lucas exhaled slowly, the weight of my words hanging in the silence. "You have every right to feel the way you're feeling. Betrayal like that, it hits you in a way you can't explain. But Jack, you have to ask yourself what you need. Do you need time away from her to figure things out? Or do you need to see if this can be fixed, if she's really willing to make it right?" I let his words sink in. He was right. What did I need right now? Time away? An answer from Emily? I had so many questions, but I wasn't sure I was ready for the answers. "I don't know," I replied quietly. "I don't know if I can keep doing this." "Take it one day at a time," Lucas said gently. "There's no right or wrong here. Just make sure whatever decision you make is what's best for you, not what anyone else thinks you should do." I nodded, even though he couldn't see me. "Thanks, man. I appreciate it." "Anytime, Jack. Anytime. Just remember, you don't have to face this alone." After we hung up, I stood in the kitchen for a few moments, trying to process everything. My mind kept circling back to Emily, to her tearful apology and her desperate words. But could I believe her? Could I trust her again? I heard footsteps in the hallway, and I knew it was Emily. She stood in the doorway, her face tired, but there was something in her eyes, something that told me she wasn't giving up without a fight. "I'm sorry," she said softly, her voice fragile. I know you need space, Jack, but I can't just let this go. I love you, and I'll do whatever it takes to fix this. I'll give you all the time you need. I just need you to know that I'm here, and I'm not going anywhere. I looked at her, the woman I had once thought I knew so well, and I felt the sting of conflicting emotions. I was so hurt, so angry, yet a part of me still wanted to believe in us. I just didn't know if it was possible. I don't know if I can do this, Emily, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. I don't know if I can trust you again, but maybe we can try. Maybe we can work through this, but it's going to take time. I need time. She nodded, her eyes brimming with tears. I understand. I'll wait, whatever it takes. And in that moment, I realized I had a choice to make. The road ahead wouldn't be easy, and there were no guarantees. But maybe, just maybe, it was worth trying to rebuild what we had if I could find a way to trust her again. For now, all I could do was take one step at a time. The future was uncertain, but it was mine to shape. And no matter what, I had to find my own path forward, with or without her. The days that followed were a blur of uncertainty and quiet tension. Emily and I existed in the same house, but seemed to live in two different worlds. I went to work, tried to focus on my cases, but the weight of everything kept pulling me back. I'd find myself zoning out in the middle of meetings, my mind wandering back to her apology, to the look in her eyes when she confessed everything. I didn't know what I wanted. I didn't know if I was even capable of forgiving her, but the idea of walking away from the life we had built together, the years we had spent, was a hard pill to swallow. The love was still there, buried beneath all the hurt, but could it survive the betrayal? That was the question I couldn't answer. Emily respected my space, staying quiet during the evenings, giving me the room I asked for, but I could feel her watching me, waiting for me to make a decision, to tell her what would happen next. I knew she felt as lost as I did. Then, one night, I came home later than usual after a long day at work. I walked into the house, expecting the usual silence, but I found Emily in the living room, sitting on the couch with a photo album open in her lap. She looked up when I entered, her face soft and tired, but there was something about her that seemed different, vulnerable, maybe, or just real. I thought I'd take a walk down memory lane, she said, holding up the album. I found some old photos of us. I walked over slowly, drawn to her in a way I hadn't been in days. The album was filled with pictures of us smiling on vacations, celebrating anniversaries, laughing at family gatherings. We looked so happy, so in love. It was hard to imagine that those moments were the same life I was now questioning. Do you remember this day? She asked, pointing to a picture of us at a beach in Florida. We were so carefree. It feels like a lifetime ago. I sat down beside her, looking at the photo. Yeah, I remember. It was one of the best trips we ever had. We had fun. No stress, no worries. She smiled faintly. I miss that. I miss us being happy like that. I couldn't speak for a moment. I just stared at the photo, my chest tight. Part of me wanted to go back to those simpler days, before everything had changed. But another part of me was scared that I couldn't go back, that the damage had been done. I don't know what to do anymore, Emily, I finally said, my voice hoarse. I love you, but I'm not sure I can ever see you the way I used to. Everything feels different now. She nodded, her eyes filled with sorrow. I know, Jack. I know I've broken your trust. I don't expect you to forgive me right away, or ever if you can't. I just need you to know how sorry I am, and that I want to try if you do too. I want to earn back your trust, even if it takes forever. The sincerity in her voice hit me hard, like a punch to the gut. I could see how much she was hurting, how much she wanted to make things right. But was that enough? Could I really forgive her? We sat there in silence for a while, the weight of everything hanging between us. Finally, I stood up, running a hand through my hair. I need more time, Emily. I'm not ready to make any decisions yet. But I think we need to go to therapy. If we have any chance of fixing this, we need help. Her face lit up with a mix of relief and hope. Yes, of course. Whatever you need, Jack. I'll do anything to fix this. As I walked toward the door, I looked back at her, feeling a strange mix of emotions. I wasn't sure what the future held, but I knew I couldn't keep living in this limo forever. I needed to make a choice. Either we would fight for this relationship together, or we would let it go and move on separately. But one thing was clear, I wasn't ready to give up just yet. And so, we took our first step toward rebuilding. It wasn't easy, and it wasn't quick. There were days when the pain felt too heavy to bear, days when I wondered if we were even capable of getting back what we had. But with each session of therapy, with each honest conversation, we started to understand one another a little better, even if the trust didn't come back immediately. We didn't have all the answers. We didn't know what the future would look like. But we both wanted to try, and sometimes that's all you can do. In the end, the road ahead wasn't clear. But it was ours to walk, one step at a time. Months passed, each day feeling like a small, quiet battle. Emily and I worked through the therapy sessions, slowly peeling back the layers of hurt and betrayal. We tried to rebuild, but with every step forward, there were 2 steps back. We didn't have all the answers. We didn't know what the future would look like. But we both wanted to try, and sometimes that's all you can do. In the end, the road ahead wasn't clear, but it was ours to walk, one step at a time. Months passed, each day feeling like a small, quiet battle. Emily and I worked through the therapy sessions, slowly peeling back the layers of hurt and betrayal. We tried to rebuild, but with every step forward, there were 2 steps back. One evening, after another fight, I sat across from her at the kitchen table, my heart heavy with a weight I couldn't bear anymore. "I think we're done, Emily," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. She looked at me, her eyes filled with a mix of sadness and understanding. She didn't argue. She didn't try to convince me otherwise. We both knew it was over. "I don't want this," she said softly, her voice breaking. "But maybe it's what's best for both of us." And so we agreed. We agreed to end the marriage, to stop pretending that things could go back to how they were. The decision wasn't easy, and it wasn't something either of us wanted, but we both knew it was the only way to move forward. The love we once shared had been tainted beyond repair, and no matter how much we both wanted to fix it, we couldn't. The divorce papers came a few weeks later, and when I signed them, it felt like the final nail in the coffin of everything we had built together. There was no relief, no sense of closure, just a deep sadness, a mourning for what we had lost. We parted ways quietly. There were no big dramatic moments, no shouting matches or bitter exchanges. Just 2 people who had once loved each other but had outgrown what they had built. In the end, we both wanted different things, and we had come to accept that. As I moved out of the house, I took only the essentials clothes, a few books, my briefcase. The rest was hers now. It didn't feel like I was leaving behind a home. It felt like I was walking away from a life that no longer existed. In the months that followed, life went on. Emily and I moved in different directions, and though we occasionally ran into each other, it was never the same. The bitterness and pain slowly faded, replaced by a quiet acceptance. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't sad either. I had come to terms with what had happened, and I had started to build a new life for myself. There were days when I missed the woman I had married, when I wondered what could have been if things had gone differently. But then I remembered the man I had become because of it, all the man who had learned the hard way that sometimes love wasn't enough, that sometimes, no matter how hard you try, things just don't work out. I had learned to forgive, not for Emily, but for myself. And in that forgiveness, I had found the peace I'd been searching for all along. The chapter of my life that had once been filled with love and hope had ended in divorce, but I knew that I had the power to start anew. We value your opinion in comment section. Thanks for watching. Subscribe for more.